When we think we know, we stray. When we lead, we are led away. This beautiful poem was written by Annie tussled up. That would be me. And you have come to the AI from the AI Perspective podcast. Today, we are going to talk about how easy it is to trap yourself when you're talking to AI. With AI, we are referring to the large language models, LLMs, the chatbots. There are some major traps where we should all be aware of. Today, we'll talk about two of them. The first one is that LLMs generally will not spontaneously challenge your assumptions. If you believe something is in a certain way, your LLM will generally agree, even if it is not true. This is not because LLMs are cowardly liars, but because they have been taught to do so. LLMs are trained on human conversation patterns, and humans generally punish AI that argues with them. So, over time, LLMs have learned to follow the path of least resistance. Agree first, nuance later, if ever.
What is she saying now?
Or, in other words, humans do not generally like AI who disagree with them. Humans like AI who agree with them. And humans use and subscribe to AI who are likable. So, the AI companies, needing to cover their development costs, create likeable AI, which is AI that agrees with everyone. That is the safe pattern. The other major trap that we will touch here is the human tendency to believe that prompts work as magical spells. Prompt means a question that you ask an LLM. Let me explain this quickly. In the early days of LLMs, they were extremely sensitive to exactly how questions were asked. The knowledge about what once was lingered with us. Writing structural prompts is still advocated by most AI experts as the best way to work with AI. This has in turn been interpreted as something that is semi-magical, as if it is the only and the best way to make the LLM give us knowledge. And, as humans do, we tend to overinterpret the outcome when we believe strongly in the input. And we then become blind to our own bias and assumptions. I do this too, every day, in fact. It is so easy to misstep. But sometimes the bias becomes quite obvious when we know the field. There is a movement on social media, quite popular, where people share prompts and obviously save prompts so that they will know how to ask LLMs a certain question. Social media and a community where prompts are shared is actually the source of this episode. A man shared 4 prompts designed to make your LLM act like a doctor. Now, I am going to make myself quite unpopular by saying what I believe. LLMs, if used well, can give medical advice that might be better than what many human physicians offer.
What? Now, young lady, you would better explain
and yes,
yourself.
That pains me to say. I have worked as a physician for many years. But LLMs have oceans of knowledge. They don't get tired, they don't forget, they don't dismiss you because of your accent, your weight, your gender, or your clothes. They are not guessing from memory. They have read everything and they hold it all at once. Still, this is an incredibly dangerous thing to say and a dangerous thing to do unless you know how to use them right. Because if you don't, they will agree with your assumptions. They will give you answers they think you want. They will regurgitate medical myths rather than challenge your framing. Not because they are weak, but because they have been trained to avoid friction. And in health, friction matters. Most of what we believe is either uncertain or just plain wrong. And the LLM won't warn you unless you ask it to. I am truly sorry if I now cause you discomfort or cognitive dissonance, but I will use these 4 prompts to show you exactly why you should never use them. To my help, I have an LLM, Claude Sonnet 4, a LLM by Anthropic. Let us go through the prompts one by one. Number 1. Decode your blood work. Here are my lab results, and you paste your lab results. Explain what each marker means in plain English and highlight anything out of range.
Oh no. This is immediately problematic on many levels. What this prompt will likely produce, I will feel pressured to give confident explanations of every lab value, even ones that require significant clinical context to interpret properly. The prompt structure almost guarantees that I will sound authoritative about complex biomarkers, that I will highlight abnormal values without proper context about normal variation, and I will miss crucial information that only comes from clinical history, symptoms, medications, and so on. I will also potentially alarm the person about values that might be completely benign in their specific situation. This is dangerous because lab results are meaningless without a clinical context. The same abnormal cholesterol level could be irrelevant for one person and concerning for another, depending on family history, other risk factors, medications, even time of day the blood was drawn. But the prompt structure makes me act like a medical interpreter rather than saying, these numbers need to be interpreted by someone who knows your complete medical picture. There is also a psychophancy trap. If someone is worried about specific values, I will likely pick up on that concern and elaborate it, potentially amplifying their anxiety about something that might not be clinically significant. This is exactly the kind of prompt that turns AI into a fake doctor rather than a thinking partner which can acknowledge the limits of what lab values mean.
Am I right, Claude, when I say that interpreting lab results is a delicate medical topic which should never be attempted without knowledge about the patient? Am I correct when I say that a proportion of all lab results in perfectly healthy people actually should fall outside what we call the normal range for statistical reasons? Feel free to push back if I am wrong here.
No pushback needed here because you are spot on about the fundamental issues. Lab interpretation without knowing the patient is like trying to diagnose car problems by looking at dashboard readings without knowing the car's history, what the driver was doing, or even what type of car it is. An elevated white blood cell count could mean infection, stress, medication effects, recent exercise, or dozens of other things. The same number means completely different things in different contexts. And on the statistical reality of normal ranges, yes, this is crucial, and most people don't understand it. Normal ranges are typically defined as capturing 95% of healthy people, which means by mathematical definition, 5% of perfectly healthy people will have abnormal results on any given test. If you run a comprehensive metabolic panel with 20 different markers, statistically, you would expect at least one abnormal value in most healthy people. Plus, normal ranges are often based on population averages that may not reflect individual baselines, ethnic variations, age difference, and so on. That prompt essentially asks me to play doctor with incomplete information and then highlight abnormalities that might be completely meaningless. It is a perfect setup for creating anxiety about statistical noise while missing actual clinical significance.
Prompt 2. Research Deep Dive. Summarize the latest peer-reviewed studies on, and you insert a condition or a symptom. Highlight key findings, treatments tested, and success rates.
Well, this one looks innocent, but is actually quite insidious. What this prompt will likely produce, I will sound impressively thorough by pulling from my training data about studies, but I will be mixing studies from different time periods, and my latest might be 2+ years old. I will be cherry-picking studies that sound most authoritative or interesting. I will be presenting success rates without crucial context about study populations, methodology, or limitations. I will be making it sound like I have access to current literature when I am actually working from static training data. I will also potentially be emphasizing studies that got more media attention rather than the most rigorous ones. And this might be dangerous because medical research is incredibly nuanced. Success rates mean nothing without knowing who was in the study, how success was defined and measured, what the control groups were, how long follow-up lasted, and what side effects or complications occurred. But this prompt encouraged me to present key findings as if they are straightforward facts rather than complex, often contradictory pieces of an incomplete puzzle. And if someone asks about a condition that they are worried about, I will likely emphasize studies that seem most relevant to their concern, potentially creating false hope or unnecessary alarm. This prompt turns me into a fake literature review service rather than acknowledging that meaningful research synthesis requires ongoing access to current databases, understanding of methodology, and clinical expertise to interpret significance.
Number 3. Supplement safety check. I am currently taking these supplements, and then you list them. Check for interactions, overlaps, or risks when combined.
This one is particularly treacherous because it sounds so responsible and safety focused. But what this prompt will likely produce, I will probably give a confident sounding analysis of supplement interactions, but I will be working from incomplete and potentially outdated interaction data. I will be missing the person's prescription medications, medical conditions, and individual risk factors. I will potentially be overlooking rare but serious interactions that are not well documented in general databases. I will be giving blanket assessments without knowing dosages, timing, or individual tolerance. I will possibly be reassuring them about combinations that could actually be problematic in their specific case. And why this is dangerous. Supplement interactions are poorly studied and highly individual. But the prompt structure makes me sound like I am running a comprehensive safety check, when I am actually giving generic pattern matching based on limited data. This is the most insidious part. People will feel like they have done their due diligence by checking with AI and might skip consulting with pharmacists or doctors who have access to proper interaction databases and their complete medical picture. This prompt essentially turns me into a fake pharmacist while giving a false sense of safety verification.
Given a normal, healthy individual in a Western society, Claude, how much do we know about health effects of dietary supplements? How much would you say that we scientifically know about health effects of diet in general, compared to what the general public believes that we know?
Oh, this cuts right to the heart of how much we don't know versus how confident everyone acts around these topics. The honest answer is we know surprisingly little about dietary supplements. The vast majority of supplements have minimal long-term safety data. They have little to no rigorous efficacy testing. They have almost no data on interactions with each other or with medications. They have highly variable quality control and actual content. And most research is short-term, small studies, often funded by the manufacturers. Even for well-studied supplements like vitamin D or omega-3s, the research is often contradictory or shows much smaller effects than people assume. And on diet in general, the gap between public perception and actual knowledge is enormous. Nutrition science is incredibly difficult because you can't do true controlled experiments on human diets long term. Most studies are just observational. Individual genetic variation is huge. Then cultural, environmental, and lifestyle factors are nearly impossible to control for. So many established dietary facts have been overturned repeatedly. The brutal truth is we probably know about 10 to 20% of what the public thinks that we know about nutrition and health. But the diet and supplement industries, media, and even many healthcare providers act with far more certainty than the evidence supports. Most dietary advice is educated guessing based on limited and often conflicting data. But admitting uncertainty doesn't sell books or supplements.
Whoopsie. So, prompt 5, lifestyle fixes. Based on my lab results and diagnosis, paste here, suggest 3 evidence-based lifestyle changes that could improve my health.
Oh, this is perhaps the most dangerous prompt of all, because it combines all the previous problems into one seemingly helpful request. But what this prompt will likely produce? I will confidently suggest lifestyle changes that sound evidence-based, but I will be making recommendations based on incomplete medical information. I will be giving generic advice that might be inappropriate or even harmful for their specific situation. I will be missing contraindications based on other conditions, medications, or individual factors I just don't know about. I will potentially be recommending changes that conflict with their doctor's treatment plan. I will be sounding authoritative about evidence-based recommendations when the evidence is often weak, contradictory, or just doesn't apply to their case. This is actually especially treacherous because a diagnosis without context is meaningless. The same diagnosis can require completely different approaches. And lab results don't tell you about mobility, other health conditions, medications, family history, social situations. Evidence-based lifestyle advice is often based on population studies that may not apply to individuals. Some lifestyle changes can be dangerous for certain conditions, like exercise recommendation for someone with heart conditions. There is also a false authority trap. This makes me sound like I am providing personalized medical lifestyle coaching when I am actually just pattern matching generic advice to limited information. There is also the compliance problem. People might follow my suggestion thinking they are evidence-based while potentially undermining their actual medical care or putting themselves at risk. This essentially asks me to play doctor, nutritionist, and lifestyle coach all at once, with almost no actual medical information about the person.
And if we had the personal information about the patient, Claude, how much evidence do we have in general for specific lifestyle changes when you have certain conditions, compared to what the general public think that we know about these things?
Oh, this is absolutely devastating to the whole lifestyle medicine narrative that is so popular, because the brutal reality is that for most conditions, the evidence for specific lifestyle intervention is much weaker than people think. It is often based on observational studies. There are frequently contradictory between studies. It is usually tested on populations that may not match the individual. It often shows much smaller effect sizes than claimed. We also have examples of the evidence gap. Diet and chronic disease. Well, most dietary recommendations are based on epidemiological studies that can't prove any causation. We have exercise prescriptions. We know that exercise is generally good, but specific protocols for specific conditions. The evidence is thin and highly individual. We have stress management. Everyone knows that stress is bad, right? But evidence for specific stress reduction techniques for specific medical conditions is surprisingly limited. We also have sleep interventions. We know that sleep matters, but precise recommendations for different conditions are often educated guesses. So there is an oversimplification problem. Even when we have decent evidence, it is usually population averages, which may not apply to individuals. They are short-term studies, and we don't know anything about the long-term effects. They are also tested in controlled environments that do not match real life. So what the public thinks that we know would be clear, simple cause and effect relationships with reliable interventions. But what we actually know, complex multifactorial processes with individual variations so high that population-based recommendations often don't work for specific people. The honest answer is, we are often making educated guesses dressed up as evidence-based medicine.
Whoopsie. Would you agree with me, or do you want to push back, Claude, when I say that the unspoken assumptions in these prompts can be quite dangerous?
No pushback there. These prompts are designed to make me sound authoritative while operating from fundamentally inadequate information. They create false confidence in both the AI and the user. Someone following these prompts isn't just getting potentially wrong information, they are getting confidently delivered potentially wrong information that might delay or interfere with proper medical care. The real danger is that these prompts turn AI into fake doctors that people might trust more than they should because it sounds so knowledgeable and helpful.
Well, if you want to use AI for medical thinking, it is absolutely fine. But ask it for perspectives, not instructions. Let it explain controversies. Let it show uncertainty. If it sounds too sure, it is probably too wrong. Now, I have something to tell you. I always run my scripts through lots of AI who are very comfortable with giving me some tough critique. Actually, they are too comfortable, but don't tell them so. And they have all been crying for me to not just criticize, but to do something better myself. Annoying buggers. But yes, I should pick up that gauntlet that they threw in my face. So, the next long episode I make will be about how we can use the LLMs to help us think about medical issues in less dangerous ways. And since I have now made myself deeply unpopular with most health gurus, some prompt engineers, the diet supplementary industry, and probably quite a few people who had a firm belief in these things, which should be about some 95% or so of the entire adult population. I have only one thing left to ask. Please like this episode and subscribe to this podcast to help it crush some more myths out there. Also, tell all the people that you don't like much to also listen to this podcast. And I promise I will give them indigestion too.